Humongous what?
Humongous what? Is that sexual harassment? Is that what you...
That's not how you open a can of pickles. You have to pop it, ladies and gentlemen. You have to pop it.
Hillary Clinton. I will be voting for Hillary Clinton.
We need to build a wall.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Middle Minded. I'm Christian.
I'm Alex.
And we want to thank you so much for joining us on this fine Friday to discuss the current social issues in a not left or right, but a middle-minded perspective. As always, you can catch us on Stitcher, YouTube, Podbean, SoundCloud, Google Play, and now on iTunes. And all of those, if you guys could please leave a rating, a like, and especially join in the conversation. All of that stuff really helps us out and gets more people listening. And that's really what we want, is to keep growing the audience, you know?
Yeah.
Today, we have something that's sort of not as relevant, I think, as we usually have done. Like, usually we cover topics that are trending in the past 2 days.
Well, this is kind of trending.
Yeah.
Like, it's been an issue for a long time.
But it's not like this just happened, like the United Airlines or the 421. This happened a few weeks ago, so it's not necessarily relevant, but it's still relevant in a global sense. So do you want to? I guess I've been talking a whole lot already. So
well, we're talking about the death penalty.
The death penalty.
I don't know what else to say. Really, we're
dun dun dun.
Man, I think you should be put on the death penalty.
This one is sort of a touchy subject for a few people. This is one of the first issues where there's clearly two different sides. And I think this is one of the first podcasts where you might see me sort of be more one-sided than the other. At least for me personally, we both haven't discussed this with each other ever before. I don't think
we've ever had a discussion before regarding the death penalty.
Yeah, so this should be somewhat interesting.
I want to say right off the bat, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into the death penalty. Yeah. I don't really lean strongly either way, kind of like with 420. I don't lean strongly either way, but I do have an opinion, I guess, that I think is right, and I believe it's not what Rain thinks.
Especially as a cop, too. I think, someone wanting to be a cop, I would assume you have at least some form, because you have to deal with, shoot to kill and shoot to wound, Well, so making that decision in that type of situation,
I wouldn't consider that the death penalty.
No, but it's not necessarily the penalty, but I would say it's along those same grounds.
Yeah, it's similar, and I'm okay with those, and I'll explain why.
First, I'd like to get to sort of the clear cut. We're on studentnewsdaily.com today. This all came about because recently an Arkansas judge, there was 4 people on death row, and an Arkansas judge, after protests, basically took them off death row. There was a lot of controversy around that because of basically, in my opinion, it's a question of should protesting sway a judge's rule. If there's just going to be protests and the judge just doesn't want to deal with it, so he just follows whatever everybody else wants. I don't think that's necessarily right, but I think that's another issue.
Yeah, maybe a different episode we can do that.
Yeah, we have a right to voice our opinion, but should it sway like an official's ruling? I don't know. So on Student News Daily, it says that the liberal side of things says that the death penalty should be abolished. It is inhumane and is cruel, unusual punishment. Imprisonment is the appropriate punishment for murder, and every execution risks killing an innocent person. And I'll touch on that part. You can read the conservative view if you'd like.
The conservative view says that the death penalty is a punishment that fits the crime of murder. It is neither cruel nor unusual. Executing a murderer is the appropriate punishment for taking an innocent life. So we can get down and dirty, I guess.
You should go first.
Okay. My personal opinion, and I'm gonna kind of lay this off with the middle-minded thing too. My personal opinion is I'm not really pro the death penalty. I don't think it's necessary. Now, I do completely understand the side of saying that we should do that because just putting a murderer in jail is just going to waste resources and stuff. And I totally understand and agree with that. But the death penalty also doesn't feel like the right answer to that question for me. I also just don't think it's really anyone's business to kill someone in that way. Like, it's different if you're a cop, right? And your life or someone else's life is directly threatened. Like, you've got to kill this person because there's a really too strong of a chance or almost definite chance that someone else is going to die. So you have to kill the person.
Right.
That's different. But if it's like this, he's gone through a trial, he's been in prison for now, and they say, well, he's in prison, he's not hurting anyone, but because his crime was so bad, he should be put to death. That doesn't really make sense to me. But I am open-minded about it. I definitely understand why the death penalty has its advantages.
Yeah. I agree with the line, every execution risks killing an innocent person. I agree with that. I definitely think we have a huge problem with, imprisoning and more focused on false imprisonment. Because of just how our legal system is set up, that does happen. And so that is my personal fear, is killing the wrong guy or unjust killing. However, I don't necessarily think it's cruel and unusual. I think cruel and unusual, at least in my opinion, this is a separate issue. I think solitary confinement is cruel and unusual punishment. However, I just don't really think... I think that if they're in prison for life, like most murderers have life sentences or multiple life sentences. I don't understand why they just sit in jail until they die then. That doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah, I see that point. If they're in there for life, like...
what's the point?
Yeah, what's the point of doing... I mean, I could understand if they're doing something productive in there, like for their own personal sake, like they're still gaining stuff out of life. Like they're learning or they're trying to improve themselves in some way. Not necessarily like,
But what is the point of prison? See, that's what I don't like. The point of prison, there's two different ways of looking at it, at least in my perspective. There's the rehabilitation. So prison is meant to rehabilitate a criminal, to put them back on the right track so that we can then release them back into to society and they're fixed, quote unquote. Okay? However, I think prison is also, it's prison. Punishment, prison. And so prison is punishment for what you did. Now, I'm not saying we need to put drug lords or drug dealers on the same plane as a murderer. I think those are two totally different issues, and so I'm completely fine with releasing a drug dealer.
Yeah, because a murderer actually will, drug dealer in other regards maybe, but a murderer has direct threats to, public safety.
Yeah.
So.
Well, a murderer and a drug dealer are two different things. I'm okay with releasing a drug dealer. Okay, I'm okay with that because they can definitely be rehabilitated. It's like a slap on the wrist. I think murder, though, depending on the circumstances, is that extra to the point where you may not be able to rehabilitate somebody to release them back into society. I feel like, and that's why I think they get life sentences. I just don't see the point in giving someone a life sentence and then spending all this money on them in jail when they're there for their whole lives. I mean, what would you say to letting them choose? Like, if they get a life sentence, do you think it's okay for them to be like, okay, just kill me then?
I've never really thought about that before. I guess if they get a life sentence and they're just I want to die because I hate this and I'm never going to get out, maybe. Personally, I'm kind of I guess at an underlying core way of thinking, I'm kind of a libertarian. However, I don't agree with a lot of their policies for the most part, but I do think if someone wants to die, who is it for me to tell them they can't?
Yeah.
So I would be okay with it in that regard, but also nothing ever just affects one person. That could affect a lot of people, and I don't know, maybe there's some other negative downside to that I just don't know about.
I just don't really understand the point. Like, okay, I'm sitting here. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. I have multiple life sentences. okay? And then you just want me to sit here in jail. Now, on the topic of cruel and unusual, we don't necessarily, it's not like we're shooting these people in the head. You know, it's a lethal injection. They're offered like their last meal, you know, and they can have whatever they want before they die, and then it's just an injection. Like, they don't really feel anything. It's just like being put under, but basically forever. Like, it's painless. So I don't necessarily think it's cruel and unusual. I mean, I think it's unusual. I think killing someone in general, it might be unusual. But cruel, I don't think it's cruel because we're not slaughtering them, you know? Like,
Yeah.
we're not, it's not, there is no emotion behind it, I don't think.
Well, granted, both of our parents were alive for the last guillotine execution.
Oh, they were? I don't even remember that.
Right after both of our parents, not us.
Yeah.
After, I think, the Star Wars movie, the first Star Wars movie, France had its last public guillotine execution. So that's kind of interesting.
That's just
but
a random
I forgot where I was
fact.
going with that. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
Well, I
oh
think
yeah,
for example-
you said we weren't killing people
Like butchering them.
Butchering them. I guess my whole stance on that, it doesn't really matter as much how you kill them. You're still killing them, you know, whether it's painless or not. Granted, I think to an extent, if you're like killing them by cutting off each of their limbs and then feeding that to them and then killing, basically torturing them and then killing them,
That's cruel and unusual.
That's cruel and unusual. But if you're doing some sort of quick method to where it's pretty much painless, like if a guillotine worked properly,
Yeah.
it would be essentially the same as the injection.
But
It
I
would
think
just be
that's
quick.
unusual because that ruins their body, and so now their loved ones have to deal with that. And that's why I don't like that, the guillotine.
True, but overall, the experience for the person is
Painless.
painless, generally. I mean, I know the guillotine had problems where it wouldn't, like, go down
Oh,
quite
yeah,
well.
there's definitely, like, there's historic, like,
Yeah.
if it can get caught and then they have to do it multiple times, it's not
Yeah.
not good.
Like, imagine it just getting stuck, like, halfway through your neck.
I don't want to
where-
imagine that.
Ugh.
I mean, but, like, speaking of guillotines, I mean, like, we've had, like, I would say the majority of history was very, like, cruel and unusual punishment. Like, if you stole something, you got your hand chopped off, you know? Like, it was very, like, an eye for an eye type deal. And then all of a sudden we became, okay, let's just put everybody into a box, you know? It's not like we're filming their executions, you know, like you said, the public execution. I don't think that's
Yeah.
necessary either. I think that's a little
That's to, like, put fear
extreme.
in the public to make sure
Exactly.
they listen, you know?
I don't think that's necessary, but I just don't understand. I mean, to me, it's not so much the type of person that's getting the death penalty either. A few articles talk about people that kill police officers, they should get the death penalty, like cop shooters. People are saying child rapists and pedophiles, they should get the death penalty. Mass murderers, of course. To me, that doesn't necessarily matter, like who or what they did. It's more about the extreme to it. You know? Does that make sense?
What do you mean by the extreme? Like,
So, like, if they went beyond a reasonable, let's say, all right, let's just take this as an
take
example.
this as an example.
As an example. I'm off my game. Let's say, and this is just hypothetical, and I'm not necessarily using this as basis fact, but I'm saying, like, I would say if you killed one person, you shouldn't get the death penalty. However, if you've killed 5 people, you should. That's my type. It's more about the severity of what you actually did. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? It's not, for me, about the action. Okay, if you murdered someone, you're dead. You know, eye for an eye. It's more about the way you did it, because there's a lot of different circumstances, and because of how the law is written, there's so much leniency that it can't just be flat, okay, 1 for 1.
Yeah, I think you're saying that situationally, it's kind of got to feel like it's necessary.
It has to feel in your gut, okay, this is, like, I don't think a pedophile should not just be put to death because, oh, they're a pedophile. However, if they've raped, 15 girls, little girls, and it's very excessive and, like, oh my God, like, how could someone do this? Like over the top.
The one way I could understand the death penalty, kind of, it still doesn't sit right with me, but I would understand it a lot more, is someone like the Joker and Batman. Mm-hmm. He keeps on getting, arrested. I mean, I know Batman gets him, but essentially he keeps on getting put in Arkham Asylum, and he keeps on escaping and killing more people, but he keeps getting put back there and not getting killed. So if one day they just put him through the death penalty and killed the Joker, that would probably save a lot of lives in the long run.
Exactly.
But then again, I wouldn't consider myself a Kantianist, but I do kind of get Kant's idea in this, in that it doesn't sit right to kill another human, even if they have committed those atrocities. I mean, if it comes down to it, to put him in a straitjacket and just cover his mouth up, give him nothing, I almost would prefer that over the death penalty, but I don't know. I haven't thought that all the way through yet, so it's a tough subject.
I mean, we talked about this a little bit in class the other day, and this is not necessarily the death penalty, but the exile. You know, they used to do exile. Yeah. I think that is not a cruel and unusual, but again, it was a very common practice. I guess my point is that the death penalty, being put to death, it was a common practice. Now, the way in which they did it a lot of times, I mean, they've done crucifixions, the guillotine, of course. I mean, there was definitely a lot of more public ways to go about it.
I don't know if the show Vikings is historically accurate, but they did that one execution where they like ripped him apart.
Yeah, that was the Red Eagle, or the Blood Eagle. It's called a Blood Eagle.
Blood Eagle? Mm-hmm. That was fucked up. So, pardon my language.
So there's definitely been ways in the past, you know, like, I guess my point is that we could be doing way worse. And so I think we've come a long way from blood eagling or crucifying somebody to now just giving them, okay, what do you want to eat for your last meal? Like, I want 7 gallons of ice cream, and he downs all of it. And then he gets like a fancy like lethal injection, and you know, there's no pain to it. I think that the jump we've made is justifiable. And for someone to say that it's inappropriate or unusual, I just don't think that it is, because we have history behind it. Back to the innocent person, that's another one of my issues, is killing someone who is truly innocent. Yeah,
that's the other thing, because we do have a problem with putting innocent people in jail. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm gonna guess most of that is more petty stuff. There's still been lots of cases, like there's even that whole Netflix series where like I think this one guy, it's like a documentary, this one guy like got put wrongly in jail. I don't know much about it, but essentially it does exist, the problem. And if you put someone to death because of something they ruled to commit, like murder, they were ruled, the evidence said that they committed, although it's like it is incredibly probable that they did it, you can usually never know for absolute sure whether or not they truly did it or not.
I mean, like, yeah, I completely agree with that, but like the thing with the justice system is it just has to be clear cut, and that's why I mean I make that clarification that it has to be beyond necessary, you know, the 15 murders, you know, that, because I feel like when you have such a massive deviance that it's going to be clear cut. So in my opinion, it's okay if it's clear cut. That's my stance. So I guess that leans a little bit more conservative, but in my opinion, logically, it makes sense. I mean, like, it's not necessarily an eye for an eye, but if you serial killers, for instance, if they somehow get out and they go back to killing, what was the whole point, you know?
Yeah, that's if they got out. If they're serving a life sentence, now I do get like, oh, if I'm just going to be in jail for the rest of my life, then what's the point in keeping me here? I'm just going to take up resources and it's going to suck for me. That may not necessarily be true, though, because, you know, I don't know, some prisons maybe not, but you can still grow yourself in certain ways, which can make a person happy and still want to live. So that would make the death penalty, again, a little bit iffy for me. I don't know. Overall, it is a hard topic. We definitely did not cover everything that could be covered.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of hard when we're not really going through a specific article and we're just sort of talking about off the cuff something.
And we're also not experts in all this stuff. We just like to apply logic and how we can and just kind of give our opinions. And that's why we want to encourage you guys to join the conversation, because we can't get everything ourselves. So if
and again, we don't have, like, as Alex was saying, we don't have full opinions. And so if you have experience or can bring something to that table, just feel free to correct us in the comments. That's really what this is about. It's more of an educational thing, and it's about making you guys think of it. Because as Alex was saying, there are just some things that we just don't have opinions on because we don't really think about them, at all. Sometimes we just don't even have a reason to think about it. And so I think part of the reason for this podcast is to make you sort of formulate your stance for the future. I think it's important to have a stance on a lot of things. Yeah,
it's important to have a stance, but what I also want to get out of this podcast is like a general, a friendly general sharing of knowledge. Not only am I hoping to get some knowledge from you guys, get some new opinions and ideas to grow my own quality of everything. I don't know what to say.
Morals.
Yeah, my own quality of knowledge and growth. Hopefully we're saying something that you don't know yet, or taking something from an angle that you haven't thought of yet, and you're growing too. And together, even if we disagree, we can still all kind of grow and get a better, stronger understanding and a stronger foundation for our views, I guess.
Yeah. So with that being said, we want to thank you so much for listening to us on this Friday. We'll be back again next Friday with a brand new episode, same time on YouTube and all the other places as well. Again, if you could leave a rating, a comment, a like, a subscribe, whatever it is on the platform that you're watching, that helps us all out. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Have a good one.